and welcome to the update for New Brunswickers.
Premier, I would like to ask everyone to ensure their microphones are placed on mute. Premier.
Thank you, Bruce. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here for another weekly update, this time to focus mostly on our First Minister's meeting yesterday with the Prime Minister to get an update on his meeting with President Trump to discuss tariffs and trade between Canada and the U.S. Les premiers ministres sont réunis hier pour faire le point.
The First Ministers gathered yesterday to debrief on Prime Minister Carney's meeting with the U.S. President. This is the biggest threat on our economy, and he made great progress.
Congratulate the Prime Minister for acting quickly on one of the biggest threats to our economy and making good progress in terms of our relationship with the United States. He presented a strong defense of Canada's sovereignty, for which the premiers were grateful yesterday. And we saw a level of respect issued by the President that was encouraging. Il a défendu fermement.
The Prime Minister has strongly defended Canada's sovereignty, and the First Ministers were proud of the way he dealt with this. He was calm and assertive. I'm not sure I could have been the same.
That the Prime Minister did talk about the Chinese tariffs on seafood that are affecting producers here in New Brunswick, and that the conversation around Chinese tariffs happened between the Prime Minister and the President. It has significant impact here. J'ai fait part des préoccupations d'une.
I shared New Brunswick's concerns about ongoing tariffs from China on our seafood. This is something that has a negative impact on our fishermen here in New Brunswick. So I was pleased to hear that the Prime Minister talked about China and tariffs in his conversations with the President.
Tariffs being threatened on the film industry and flagged to the Prime Minister and the table that those will have a negative impact on New Brunswick, where we have a rapidly growing and in exciting ways film sector here in New Brunswick, and the threat of the U.S. tariffs is one that is serious and that matters to us, not only to the Torontos or Vancouvers or Montreals of the world, but we have some great film producers growing their business and doing more and more things in New Brunswick, and so we made clear the negative impact that those tariffs would have on this province. Alors, j'ai partagé ces préoccupations.
I shared my concerns about the U.S. Tariffs on the film industry and the negative impact that this would have on New Brunswick, where our film industry here is developing. It's we've seen new productions come here, so I did share my concerns because this issue impacts New Brunswick as well.
Nation-building projects to really re-energize our economy, to grow our opportunities, to trade with each other and with the world. And the Prime Minister asked premiers for suggestions on what those projects should be. Thankfully, New Brunswick is bursting with opportunities, and as folks here know, we set out in our speech from the throne a commitment to retool our economy for growth and for trade diversification, for greater productivity and competitiveness. So I was really pleased to lay out for the Premier, the Prime Minister, pardon me, opportunities for federal partnership with our ports in Beldoon and St. John, who are ready to increase their national and their international trade, imports and exports of energy products and other materials and goods, with additional investment and partnership from the feds in the infrastructure that supports that, whether that be the rail systems that feed into both of those ports, some of the transportation infrastructure that they encounter, and some of what's needed in the ports themselves. Clairement, le Nouveau-Brunswick est
Clearly, New Brunswick is bursting with opportunities, so I was pleased to present some projects that are nation-building projects where New Brunswick can play a role. The New Brunswick ports are ready to increase international trade and national trade with investments with the federal government as a partner. New Brunswick is also a leader in modular home building, and we're ready to tap into investments to tackle the national housing crisis through our expertise here in New Brunswick. We have projects that are ready to move on with their critical minerals to support economic development.
In modular home building, that we have expertise here and we have companies here that do this better than anyone. They're already selling products to Quebec, to Ontario, to Nova Scotia, and that New Brunswick can play a lead role in making sure Canadians have affordable places to call home in partnership with the federal government. These companies are ready to expand. They're ready to do more and build that employment opportunity here to help solve a crisis that Canada is facing. We also flagged to the Prime Minister that we have projects that are ready to move in terms of the development of critical minerals in New Brunswick that will support both economic development and good paying jobs for New Brunswickers, but also support some of our critical interests in the green economy and the defense sector. With that, a couple other things I'd just like to put an emphasis on this week, because there's been some good news this week that I'd like to emphasize for you. We are proud to be bringing some relief to New Brunswickers through a property tax assessment freeze that was tabled in the legislature on Tuesday. We have heard from New Brunswickers, certainly on the campaign trail and definitely over these last 6 months, how hard they are finding it to pay ever-increasing property tax bills, and they see their assessments going up and up and up every year, and their bills going up every year, and they have been asking us for relief and for affordability support on a number of files, but particularly on the affordability of their homes and their property taxes. And so we had committed to an overhaul of the property tax system. We have started doing that work. There are a lot of options on the table, but very few of them that could be converted into legislation that could have landed by June 1st. So the first step we're taking to provide relief to New Brunswickers is a freezing of their property tax assessments for 2026. Nous apportons un répit aux gens de Nouveau-Brunswick grâce à un gel des évaluations foncières.
We are bringing some relief to New Brunswickers through a property assessment freeze for 2026. This is something that we have heard. We have heard that New Brunswickers wanted some help with affordability. We promised to do a total reform of the property tax system. So this is as a way to show some progress. We decided to freeze the property assessment while we keep on doing work to reform the system. And we will be working on this during the fall session and the session after.
The first kick at municipal reform a number of years ago. So we're very pleased to have tabled the legislation that provides municipalities with the increased funding that they have been looking for and the system to deliver that funding, which means $68 million more to municipalities next year, and those funds growing in the years after that, because we hear municipalities telling us about the needs they have in community, and our government delivered on our commitment to provide that fiscal reform with this model that's being tabled and the new funds that are being directed to municipalities. So we really appreciate the collaboration that's been happening with municipalities on that file, and that did start under the previous government, but it didn't get done, and so we're really pleased that those leaders continued to stay at the table and work with us on the right model of funding to get that fiscal reform done. We're thrilled to have it tabled in the legislature and looking forward to delivering those funds next year. Je suis vraiment heureux d'avoir collaboré.
I am really pleased to have collaborated with municipalities on the fiscal reform project. This is something that we had promised during the elections, and I am very pleased that we are delivering on our promise by giving an extra $68 million next year and in further years to help municipalities on their work. This is something that they had been asking for, that the previous government had not finished, and we are very pleased to have presented this week in the legislature this model.
With that update on the Prime Minister's trade conversations with Trump, the promotion that we've been doing on opportunities for nation-building projects here in New Brunswick in ways that the federal government and Prime Minister Carney can invest and partner for New Brunswickers' benefits, and a bit of an update on the property tax assessment freeze and relief we're providing along with the new municipal reform funds. I look forward to taking your questions.
Thank you very much, Premier. Merci beaucoup. We'll now proceed with questions from members of the media. We have approximately 20 minutes for questions, so we will try to get to as many reporters as we can. Each reporter will get one question and a quick follow-up. You have the right to pose your question in the official language of your choice. Nous allons maintenant procéder aux questions des...
We will now proceed with the questions from the media. We have 20 minutes. We will try to have as many questions as possible. Every member of the media has a question and a follow-up, and you can ask your question in the language of your choice.
Hina, can you unmute your microphone and ask your question?
Hi, Premier. Sorry. Hi, Bruce. I was wondering if, Premier, you could tell me with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's musings about holding a referendum on sovereignty, how does that affect the morale at the table when you're discussing interprovincial trade? And what's the reaction from the other premiers about it?
I think the reaction from the premiers yesterday around the First Minister's table after Prime Minister Carney gave his update was how critical it is for Canada's leaders to stay unified, to be supporting Team Canada, while also recognizing the challenging position that premiers like Premier Smith and Premier Moe are in with their populations. There's certainly a sense of challenge that they're facing and of discontent that was clear, that we heard from those premiers, but also a strong sense from everyone on that call that it's something we can work together on. It's something the Prime Minister is committed to addressing, and in fact, our next First Minister's meeting is scheduled to be in person in Saskatchewan, I think on June 1st and 2nd, and so that's part of the work that needs to be done to bring Canadians together and to demonstrate the ways in which we are stronger as a unified nation that trades with each other, that leverages strengths east to west, but recognizes that we are a diverse country, a big diverse country that shares a lot of different views on things, but there's more that we agree on than we disagree on. And so I think Prime Minister Carney made it clear that he's very interested in projects that get our resources moving east to west, that open up opportunity to get resources to Tidewater and to new markets, and that's something he's prepared to work on. And so I think there is opportunity to move ahead while Premier Smith does what she feels she needs to do with the population that she's responsible to govern.
Quick follow-up, Ms. Alam.
Thank you, Bruce. I was with the report yesterday on the mystery brain disease. I was wondering if that would stymie the province's efforts to determine what's going on, and will the province maybe partner with University Health Network in Toronto or some of the other universities to get some of the patients a second opinion, like the paper had said? Thanks, Premier.
To the first part of your question, Hina, the work that the province is doing in partnership with the patients remains critical. We need to work with the patients and the population of New Brunswick to answer the question about what is making New Brunswickers sick. And I think that the study didn't answer that question. We need to continue to explore what's making people sick and how do we get at that. And so I think that the work that public health is doing and the support we're getting from the Public Health Agency of Canada is critical for us to continue to try to answer those questions for New Brunswickers, knowing that there might not be one answer. There may be multiple things that are at play here in different areas of the province and in different situations, but there's too many unanswered questions for us to stop the work that public health is doing to be able to provide patients and potentially future patients with the information they need about what's causing these illnesses.
Suzanne Lapointe, Global TV.
Hi. Because New Brunswick is particularly vulnerable to the impact of tariffs just due to the volume of trade that the province does with the U.S., has Carney indicated whether there might be any federal relief measures for New Brunswick?
We didn't talk about specific provincial level relief on the First Minister's call yesterday, but New Brunswick is certainly engaging with the Prime Minister directly and eager to see what cabinet he calls, because we are planning to bring a bit of a New Brunswick kitchen party to Ottawa to make clear what our priorities are and the best ways for the federal government to support industries here in New Brunswick that have been hit. There's more conversations to have about tariff relief and support and our retaliatory tariff program as the evolution of this trade dispute continues and as we move into negotiating the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement. So at this point, we're looking forward to making New Brunswick's unique needs really clear to the Prime Minister. We know it's clear to the members of his team that represent New Brunswick, and we've been engaging with them as well. But we haven't yet talked about specific tariff relief for New Brunswick companies, other than, I should say, the work that's ongoing with different New Brunswick companies around receiving their remissions from the funds available, getting exemptions on import tariffs. That's work that we're doing on a daily basis with New Brunswick companies as they experience challenges.
A quick follow-up, Ms. Lapointe.
Thank you. You mentioned that the seafood sector in the province was being impacted by the Chinese tariffs. Are there any specific relief measures from the province for the seafood industry at this time?
So there are absolutely specific relief measures from New Brunswick, as we announced, I can't think of how many weeks ago, because we put together a tariff support package worth $162 million that included funds to support companies with working capital who have either lost clients or are experiencing a higher cost of doing business because of things like Chinese tariffs, funds to support their access to new clients and competitiveness investments and productivity investments, support for employees that might be impacted, support for communities that might be impacted. So that New Brunswick tariff relief package opened up a couple months ago and is available to those producers and fishers that are experiencing challenges from tariffs, even though they might be Chinese and not U.S.
Alex Villeneuve, Radio-Canada.
You've already shown openness to new pipelines in New Brunswick. Has your position evolved, and are you in favor of a pipeline in New Brunswick? Yes, we are interested in getting a pipeline from west to east to get access to the western resources for the New Brunswick infrastructure and also for markets abroad. So now that it is clear that you are in favor of this, what are you willing to do? Maybe have conversations with the Irvings, or are there any conditions that the New Brunswick is going to put in place? Conversations have not gone that far. The conversations have been held with the national group about the potential of infrastructure that would be a trade corridor and an energy corridor. The pipeline issue has been raised. We have clearly shown an interest, and there is an interest in Quebec, I know that they are having their own conversations. We have not put any conditions or demands. It's too early in the conversation to know whether it is possible, if someone can finance New Brunswick's role. We know from the work that was done in the years past that the costs are very high, and we need to make sure that it will be profitable. So we have to do a lot of work with the communities to see what the impacts would be. So we are not at that point. We do not have the green light from the federal government. We do not have anybody from the private sector interested in this project yet. We have a political national support, but this is the first page of the first chapter.
Adam, you hear us? Please unmute your microphone.
Sorry there, I didn't hear Bruce. Thanks, Premier. Premier, just wanted some further thoughts on Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's separatist threats. Is that helpful right now? And do you have a message for her? Ford said Carney needs to be nicer to Alberta. Do you believe that to be true?
I mean, I think that at this point in time, given the threats that we're facing from the United States that continue to be expressed by the president, and the importance of the negotiation of the next U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement, that now is the time for Canada to be unified and aligned in the face of that kind of economic threat from our largest trading partner. And I think that the impact of that failed relationship will impact all of the provinces in ways that are massive. And so our focus is on making sure that the Prime Minister has a unified country to put his best and strongest positions forward to the U.S. through the negotiations that are to come. And I think that something that Prime Minister Carney has already demonstrated is a particular interest in each different province in Canada and their unique realities. And he brings a bit of an understanding of the province of Alberta, having spent a considerable amount of time there. And from what I understand, he and Premier Smith have met and have engaged, and it seems like it was a very positive conversation. I think this Prime Minister has demonstrated an interest to support the development of resources, the development of the economy in ways that align with Premier Smith's. So I am optimistic that as we move forward, we will be able to stay unified as a country in the face of the American threats, and build more understanding between all of the different provinces in Canada about what we have to offer each other, and how we can build a stronger and stronger nation to take on the world and to thrive.
Quick follow-up.
Yes, please. You said that Prime Minister Carney asked for nation-building projects of the premiers. Was an oil pipeline headed east explicitly discussed, and what would be the next steps after compiling a list of projects?
So an oil pipeline headed east wasn't discussed explicitly on the call. It was, I think, mentioned by a couple premiers, but whether it's in their submission lists to the federal government, I'm not sure. New Brunswick has prepared a list to submit it, and includes the priority items that I expressed today, the support for our ports and for our modular housing industry, for the development of critical minerals in New Brunswick, as well as other things. I think each province is doing that work of building their priority lists to send to the federal government. So we'd be interested to see where a project like that lies on those lists, but it wasn't an explicit conversation at the First Minister's meeting yesterday.
Alexandre Boudreau, l'Acadie Nouvelle.
Bonjour. J'aimerais parler.
Hello, I would like to talk about education cuts. The Minister of Education says that you are not responsible for the cuts in the school districts. And you talk about investments in education, and the districts talk about cuts and say that you are not transparent. So can you tell me about this? I believe that we were very clear. There is an additional $100 million in the districts for education. So this is not a cut. This is a large investment much larger than they ever got in the previous years. The difference is that we asked specifically where those investments should go because we need to stabilize our classrooms. We need to support our teachers in our schools on the ground to improve our literacy and numeracy results. We focused on new investments that will improve students' results and that will support teachers on the ground. The districts decided that to do what we asked and to do what they wanted to do. I think that's what they do every year at budget time. Well, they did what they had to do, but we asked them to invest in classrooms and teachers. So we see that the district's budgets increased is an extra $85 million. No, well, I was looking in the budget recently, and it was 85 million, not 100 million. It comes from my budget. The number that we have is that we are spending $1.6 billion in this system, and last year we spent $1.5 billion. We invested an extra $200 million, and half of it was put in the districts. I can look with the team to see what the difference is between those two line items and the budget that you looked at. The Francophone School District South said that we cannot cut without having a negative impact in the classrooms. How do you react to this? Certainly, one of the directive was to focus on classrooms and to have a positive impact on the students, their results in numeracy and literacy, and on teachers, because our priority is retention of our teachers. So it is concerning to hear that the district cannot find opportunities to reduce costs elsewhere to invest in the classrooms and in teachers. But we will have more conversations. Maybe we will be willing to support putting the resources in schools and in classrooms, or maybe they thought that government wanted the money to stay in some programs. We will have the conversation. We want investments made in the classrooms. We want this shift done. And if they believe that they cannot do it, we will have a conversation and we will find a way to protect our goal to improve results in literacy, numeracy, and in teacher retention.
Premier, do you have a better idea now that we've had a little bit of time since the federal election results and the meeting with Prime Minister Carney, with the list of priorities that you gave to the new federal government, what might be dealt with first? Not necessarily what you think should be dealt with first, but what you believe the federal government will make a real impact on first with the list that you provided?
Well, given that the list is due like tomorrow, the sense that we get from the federal government and certainly from the Prime Minister from yesterday's meeting is that he is going to act and wants to act quickly, that his commitment to tearing down internal trade barriers by July 1st remains. And so we had a chance to express to him the importance of making sure the Coastal Trading Act is included in that as a barrier of issue here in New Brunswick, as well as some of the regulations around CFIA that force the duplication of inspection services that cost time and money to New Brunswick businesses. But really what we've seen from the Prime Minister here, that we're a week or two out from the election and prior to cabinet selection, is a sense of nation-building projects that they've asked us to deliver, a need to focus on our economy and our trade and our infrastructure to support trade, a focus on housing, and clearly a focus on a new relationship with the United States where Canada is going to win, and we're going to see a strong and effective trading relationship and trading agreement in the future.
And is there any update on having an MOU signed with Nova Scotia and PEI, just like Newfoundland and Labrador?
We are in conversations actually with PEI. It's moving rather quickly, and now that we know that we're headed to Saskatchewan for the next FMM, I'm going to bump Premier Moe up on our list and see if we can use that opportunity to sign an MOU with Saskatchewan. And so I don't have a date of that next announcement for you, but the conversations have been positive. It's just fitting it into getting back into the legislature and some of the work that we're doing around freezing property assessments and supporting New Brunswickers and improving their access to healthcare. And so we're fitting it into the calendar, but it's moving forward positively.
Mark Leger, CBC, please unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Where do things stand with respect to critical minerals development in the province? Where are the opportunities in your mind, the best opportunities?
Oh gosh, there's a lot of opportunities, Mark. So thank you for that question. And I wish I had my map in front of me so that I could go through with you all of the places where New Brunswick has some of the most world-class deposits. We know we have 21 of the 34 minerals that Canada has identified as critical here in New Brunswick, and that includes antimony and tungsten and molybdenum and copper. And I won't be able to name them all for you, although we can get you that information. And developments that are restarting in places like the Caribou Mines, the progress that they've seen at the Sisson Mine. There's projects down south, and I'm going to forget the name of the lake that they're beside. There's Mount Pleasant. We can get you, if you'd like, the full map that the Department of Natural Resources has on the mineral opportunities in New Brunswick, where they exist, what stage of development they're at, which ones are really close to development, which ones are in the exploration phase, because there are a number of them that are ready to be realized through good partnership with the federal government on a robust permitting process. And I will add that both Minister Heron and myself have engaged with First Nations leadership in New Brunswick on this subject, going back a number of months and weeks and have been pleased with the engagement around a new role for First Nations in mineral development projects, where they come into the table as partners, where there's opportunity for equity as we develop our resources for the benefit of all New Brunswickers. Mr.
Leger, last question.
If the public appetite was there and the proponents were there, would you be interested in looking at natural gas extraction again in the province? The discussion seems to be alive in places like BC.
That's an interesting one, because you just highlighted two significant ifs: if the public appetite was there and if there was a proponent there. And I'm not sure that either of those two ifs exist, not in ways that I've seen it, whereas I do see a lot of interest from both the market, from proponents, from partners and communities to realize the benefits of the minerals that are here in New Brunswick. I think that's something that we can move quickly on and deliver a benefit to New Brunswickers in a shorter amount of time, that also recognizes where we are at in the global marketplace. The demand for these critical resources is insatiable, and you can see why, given the role that many of those minerals play in the defense sector, which is growing both in Canada and globally, as well as the green economy. And so the demand is there and the supply exists in New Brunswick, whereas the competitive market to supply natural gas to places around the world looks very different. And so maybe that partly explains why there aren't proponents at our door expressing interest in that opportunity, whereas we have proponents that are very keen to partner with New Brunswick on the minerals that they need.
Merci beaucoup. Voilà.
Thank you very much. This concludes today's update.
Thank you.
Merci tout le monde. Thanks.